I love the name Viagogo, but how did you come up with that name?
Yeah, it's an interesting. We get that question all the time. So, starting a business internationally, we needed something which was easy to spell, easy to say, and would not alienate anyone across Europe. So you almost needed something which, didn't really mean anything. But Viagogo, remarkably, we haven't offended anyone in Europe. Everyone seems to remember it. The URL was available, so far so good.
What were some of the differences you noticed right away between the secondary ticket market in Europe and the United States?
Sure. When you go to Europe and you start any business in Europe, the first thing to realize is it's not the United States of Europe. So there's a lot of different cultures and that impacts a lot of different ways. It impacts in terms of the makeup of the events, where obviously football or soccer is very big over there. But after that, a lot of it's music, concerts, theater, a little bit different mix than it is in the States. That mix can vary by country, and in each country you have different payment issues, different cultural issues, different things that you really need to understand. And so it's been very educational for me coming over as an American to understand there's huge complexity to start a business in Europe, but the benefit is once you do start and have a leadership position, it's very difficult for people to follow. When you look at the overall markets, the primary ticket market in Europe and in the US is about equivalent. The secondary market in Europe is a little bit smaller just because you don't have you don't have the 81 home baseball games, the 41 home basketball games, you have one major sports league, and it's more skewed towards concerts a bit. But basically I'd say it's probably about 20%, 15 to 20% smaller than the US market. But otherwise the dynamics of it are all the same in terms of people wanting to buy and sell tickets. And it's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity.
After soccer, what are some of the other sports that are very popular as far as people buying and selling tickets on the secondary market in Europe?
Sure. So there's big opportunities. Tennis, obviously, you have Wimbledon, the French Open, the ATP Championships every year. We at Viagogo work with the French Open and the ATP Championships as a partner. There's rugby, is very, very popular across the continent. They have the Six Nations rugby. Cricket, for example, is also. You've got some EuroLeague basketball, so there's a lot of different sports. And then, of course, you've got the concert business. The concert business, many of the major arenas there, like the O2 in London, is equivalent. It's like the Madison Square Garden of Europe. It's really a center for all the world's leading acts to play.
What countries were the easiest to get your business going in, and conversely, what countries were more difficult?
The UK, relatively speaking, was certainly easier, although I have learned that I speak American and not English, and had to deal with that. But that being said, what's been striking to me is how much easier it is to start a business in the US than it is even in the UK. You have to take even a business like ours and tailor it for local culture and local systems, or else you just won't be successful.
What type of growth has Viagogo had in Europe the last 2 or 3 years?
So it's really been phenomenal. It's been great. We pioneered the category, and we've seen similar trajectory at StubHub. We grow at multiples the last few years, so not even percentages. Doubling, tripling, doing that. We sell hundreds of millions of dollars worth of tickets annually. I think, as you know from what StubHub has discussed, I believe they're selling over $1 billion in this country. But we're growing rapidly. We're bigger at this stage in our trajectory than StubHub was at the same age. So it's really, we're seeing great adoption. Again, the great thing about ticket resale and providing a safe, secure solution is everyone wants a safe, secure solution. Whether you're German, whether you're English, whether you're Italian, it's no different than being in New York or Los Angeles. We really believe when they ever colonize the moon and have a stadium on the moon, it's certainly better to have a safe, secure alternative than to be dealing with a Martian on a street corner or whatever the equivalent would be.
Is there a big difference in the pricing of the product between Europe and the United States? You look at taking 15% from the seller and so forth, or is it more or less the same with Viagogo in Europe as it is with StubHub in the United States?
It's the fundamentals of the economics are the same. It's a 25% fee structure, and we take care of the payment and delivery. So the basics of it are consistent.
In the United States, there's still a considerable amount of ticket scalping that goes on at the sporting event, and that's actually looked on positively as an area for growth for the online market. Can the same be said for Europe? And if so, electronics and handheld devices, is that a way that Viagogo can capture more of that market?
Yeah, so I think, again, if you look at it, the first thing to go, and we saw this at StubHub, is when you enter and you give people a safe, secure alternative, the first thing that people are going to abandon is you have people who used to go to a pub in Europe, or they go to a bar, or they'd be hanging out on a street corner, and that's diminished greatly. Now, there still are people who are outside arenas selling tickets, and that's probably a growth opportunity for StubHub, but that is dramatically decreased from where it was when we started the business. Likewise, in Europe, by the more we roll out viagogo, we decrease it, but it's not at zero, and as long as it's not at zero, you have an opportunity. I think the second part of your question about mobile devices, it's a huge opportunity for anybody, I think, across the board. And you know, we've basically more and more what's happening is you have your computer in your pocket, whether that's on an iPad or an iPhone or whatever, an Android phone. And that's only going to help all online businesses, I think, you know, generate more and more growth.
Eric, how concerned are you with StubHub coming over to Europe?
Well, I think, you know, first off, when I started the business viagogo a few years ago, I realized there's one of two sort of outcomes. Either I'd start it and it wouldn't be very successful and I'd have to swim back to the United States, probably literally. Or if it was successful, it was a matter of time before my old friends would obviously try and come to Europe where there's such great explosive growth. So happily, it was the latter. So I think it's great recognition that there's a huge global opportunity here. I'm surprised it's taken them probably as long as it has to come over. Obviously, have a lot of affection for StubHub. I think it's been a great acquisition for eBay, and I think that the management of StubHub that eBay's put in has done a great job growing it. So we respect them. But that being said, I think as we've talked about, doing business in Europe in any industry, much less the secondary ticketing industry, is very different, and we think it's very challenging. And so while we certainly respect everyone, we don't fear anyone, and we're really excited about continuing our leadership position as the pioneers in Europe.
Do you think there's room for both of you, or that ultimately one of you, and I know which one you think, will be the survivor?
Well, I think, as I say, I think it's a big market. It's a growing market. I'm sure that people, as they have in the United States, can grow businesses there. But I think if you have global aspirations to dominate and to be the leading player, which is really, you know, the way we've always thought about it when we started StubHub and starting viagogo, you know, there's a big gulf between number one and number two. So I think it'll be a challenge for other players who are trying to trail in our wake.
Good. That was a good one. It's a good way to